This video is an overview of the graphic settings. I just created this machine, so this should be exactly what you'll see when you first install DPS900 for the first time. So I've got my drilling emulator here showing. You'll see up in this upper right corner there's an expandable icon bar. I'll click on the cog icon there and I'll get to my graphic settings. So a lot of these are going to be pretty self-explanatory. I'll just go through all of them just so you can understand what they each do and what I recommend for most operators. So first off, use map rotation. Many of you will be familiar. If you have this off, north will always be up on the screen. But for most operators, having that enabled will actually help so that as they turn the machine, up on the screen will always be forward. And this makes the bullseye view much more intuitive. If the arrow tells you, you have to go up and left, it'll be up and left on the plan view as well. Whereas if you had map rotation off, up and left may not look the same on the screen because north is always up. Then you've got your map grid. Whether map grid is on or off, if you have map rotation on, the map grid will not be displayed. Show point names. So that'll be if you bring in any control points or points in the design VCL file, you'll be able to see the names associated with that point. I'll just leave that off because I don't have any control points in this file. Show cross-section names. That's going to be if you've got your cross-section view and you've got names associated with the cross-section at the different nodes, you'll be able to see that. Invert background color. By default, the background is white, but if you're working in low light conditions or nighttime operation, you may want that background to be black. It's a little easier on the eyes, so you can turn that on if you'd like. Down here, alarm is related to avoidance zones that you may have put into your design VCL file. So if you've got avoidance zones in your design, they'll be colored red in your plan view. And all this is saying is if you have an avoidance zone, what is the distance from the avoidance zone that I want to start warning the operator? So this is saying when I get within 1.5 meters of my avoidance zone, I start getting my warning, and then obviously once I get into my avoidance zone, I'll still be getting that warning. If I have the sound enabled, I'll get an audible warning as well. If I have this disabled, it'll just be a visual error or warning message across the top of the screen. If I come down here, the drilling and piling is basically the same setup here. Show GNSS, that's just going to be showing where your two antennas are on your machine. This isn't really so critical. Show machine. Some people like to be able to see their machine body, just if they've got avoidance zones or maybe they just want to get a rough idea of where they are in the plan view. This can be important, but it really isn't necessary, so I'll turn that off. And the overall goal of this is just to simplify what the operator sees and try to make it as simple as possible. Show mast. I leave that on because what that'll do is show the direction that your mast is pointing. That helps with inclined holes, where if you've got a hole inclined in one direction, you can line up the way your mast is lined up on the screen. You'll actually see a dotted line, and you can line up those two lines as just a visual aid to see that you've got the correct mast inclination. Show circle. That's just going to be showing what you can reach within your current position. This will change a lot depending on if you've got the ability to extend the boom or anything. So this is kind of up to the operator if they want to see their circle of influence where they can reach from their current position. But I'll turn that off for now. Show tool sight line for the pitch and roll. So what this is going to do is create a crosshair in either the pitch or roll axis, depending on which ones you activate, through the tool. And through the tool is really the most important because that's going to be showing exactly where your tool currently is. So I like to have that enabled for both of them. And this show machine center sight line, that is going to be through the center of the machine, through your rotation center. So it can also be helpful. It'll be a crosshair as well through the machine center, wherever you defined it. And that can help you to line up with holes that are really far away. But for the most part, the show tool sightline is going to be a little better because that's actually where your tool is, and I think it's a little easier to navigate using that position for the crosshairs rather than a crosshair through the machine center line. The last one on this part of the list is limit to show mast direction. It is in degrees. Like I mentioned earlier with that show mast, how it'll show the inclination of your mast. That can be really helpful if you're doing inclined holes. But if you're doing vertical holes, it can be a little distracting because when your mast is vertical, it'll be showing directions all over the place just because it's so close to being plumb. So what this lets you do is put a tolerance in here. So if I've got 2 degrees, what it's saying is that if my mast is within 2 degrees of plumb, it is not going to show my mast direction. Because if I'm only doing vertical holes, I really don't care about seeing that mast direction. And in fact, seeing that would actually be in the way and not really important. So you can set this to whatever you'd like, but I think 2 or 3 degrees should be enough so that it's not distracting to the operator when doing vertical holes. And then down here at the bottom, you've got a few options related to how the drill plan will be displayed. So the first one is show the plan in the graphics. That'll most likely always be on because you, of course, want to see all the holes in your drill plan. And then these bottom 2 are for showing the ID of each drill plan hole or showing the name. And most often these are going to be the same, but the ID will be most crucial if you do want to see it. So I'll turn that on, and you'll see what you'll see is a little name next to the hole. But for most people, that's not super crucial to see in the plan view because you can also have the ID of the hole in the info box. It'll be in bigger text, and it may not be so important for you to actually see that in the plan view because you'll be able to see it in the info box. So I'll actually just leave it off because we just don't want to clutter up the screen with too much information. And that's how you configure the graphic settings. And this will be what you would see. So very simple. Like I said, you'll see this target and the crosshairs is just going to be showing where my tool is. If I wanted to show my machine body, I could do that as well. But for a lot of people, that will not be as crucial.